Some brands offer you low finance, or cashback, or servicing.
Renault don't do ors. We do ands. The Renault Kadjar with 1.91% APR and €1,000 cashback and 3 years servicing, saving you thousands. Renault, the brand with the ands. Visit your local Renault dealer. Finance is made under a hire purchase agreement. Terms and conditions apply. Deposit required. Subject to lending criteria. See Renault.ie.
Previously on Coffee with Kenobi.
When Johnson is asked about the meaning of the title, The Last Jedi, he confirms that this is in reference to Luke. He says, it's in the opening crawl of The Force Awakens.
Yes. For heaven's sakes, why is this a mystery? Sorry, go ahead.
And that's why we keep having Scott back on.
This is Vanessa Marshall, Harrison Dula from Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
Hello and welcome to show number 86 of Coffee with Kenobi, your spoiler-free place for Star Wars discussion, analysis, and rhetoric. I'm your host, Dan Z, drinking out of my gray and white Lucasfilm coffee mug, and very much looking forward to discussing and analyzing Star Wars with each of you. Welcome to our CWK family members, both new and old. Thank you for joining me once again for a cup of coffee and Star Wars conversation. We hope to make you think about Star Wars in a whole new way, and maybe laugh a little bit in the process. On today's show, we have major news to break down, including a brand new director and direction for Episode 9. Richard Woloski takes a break from co-hosting to catch us up on Galaxy's Edge and Disneyland. Our CWK newsman, Tom Gross, will bring us the latest Star Wars news. And in the coffee chat, we're going to revisit a topic we brought up on our Facebook Live feed on Force Friday, Luke's behavior in Jabba's palace during the beginning of Return of the Jedi. So pull up a chair, grab your favorite coffee mug, and let's have some coffee with Kenobi.
And now, let's see what's brewing in the Star Wars universe this week.
Joining us today for a cup of coffee is Richard Woloski from Skywalking Through Neverland. Welcome, Richard.
Dear Kathleen Kennedy, please bring back Lord and Miller to the Star Wars franchise with Episode 9. Signed, truly yours, Dan Zare. Hello, are we on?
We are.
Oh, hey, Dan, how's it going there?
It's going beautifully. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm doing just great. Thank you. If you get a call from Kathleen Kennedy, just play along, okay? It'll be really funny.
That's typically what I do. I think that's a good call. I'm glad I caught you when I did. Also, well, it's good to have you back on the show.
Glad to be back on the show.
And officially, I am going to be back at the Rancho Obi-Wan Gala in November, and I am excited I will get to hang out with you again.
Yeah, it feels like it's been 11 months and 15 days and 13 hours since I've seen you last, according to my blog.
Well, but also Celebration, we saw each other.
That doesn't count. That was on the East Coast, so that doesn't count.
Oh, that's true, the whole time zone thing.
Yeah.
So speaking of time zones, we also have with us the co-host of Idiot's Array and of Tarkin's Top Shelf, Mr. Mark Suter.
Hello.
How's it going, man? Good to have you on Coffee with Kenobi.
Yeah, it's going great. You were on our show 2 years ago. So I guess I'm returning the favor. If you think of it as a favor, it might actually be kind of a drag. I don't know.
No, it's great. It's great. You've been a great supporter of our show for a long time, and it's nice to have you on. And gentlemen, we're going to forego our usual conversation points at the beginning because we've got a lot to discuss. We have a new director and writer of Episode 9, J.J. Abrams, and we have a new release date. So let's look at the J.J. news first, and we're seeing a range of surprise and joy and concern. Richard, what are your initial thoughts on this?
Concern? Who's concerned out there? Come on, people. It's Star Wars fandom. Have fun with it. Honestly, when I first saw the news that J.J. Abrams was back and going to be directing Episode 9, I was happy that they had someone that wasn't just an up-and-coming student from film school that they could push around and just fire 2 months later on. But I really wanted another choice. I was looking for Dave Filoni. That'll never happen. I was looking for Joe Johnston. I don't know if they're going to go back to him. I was looking for maybe Jon Favreau. He would be the closest choice. But you know what? If it had to be J.J. Abrams, so be it. I'm extremely happy. I loved The Force Awakens. And say what you will, that it was a carbon copy of A New Hope. That's fine. We still had a lot of fun. And as long as Episode 9 is not a carbon copy of Return of the Jedi, then you know what? We're all good. JJ knows what he's doing.
Yub. Mark, what about you?
Well, I am excited that J.J. Abrams is going to do it. I had been hoping for a female director, something like Patty Jenkins, who just knocked it out of the park with Wonder Woman.
Oh, yeah.
Or Ava DuVernay, but I knew she was in the midst of post-production for A Wrinkle in Time. So J.J. Abrams was basically on my short list of people I would be okay with and happy with if they were chosen. And, you know, as he said there, the idea of a carbon copy of A New Hope, I don't know. I think you had to ground some of the more risky things, like introducing a whole new cast of characters, killing Han Solo, not having Luke Skywalker speak at all. I think you really had to anchor all of that new in something old and familiar. So I think it was a smart move. So I'm excited that JJ is coming back because I really do like his work.
Well, when Colin Trevorrow was removed from the project, or however you want to state it, I think I naturally went to, maybe Rian Johnson will stick around. That would be awesome because obviously I have not seen Episode 8, but it sure seems like it's going in a direction and it's going to be the kind of film that we are going to really love as Star Wars fans and just movie fans in general. And for a fleeting moment, I thought, well, it'd be awesome to have JJ back, but that's not going to happen. So when I heard the news the other day, I was absolutely ecstatic because, like you said, Richard, I love The Force Awakens. I still think it's practically a perfect Star Wars film, and I've never seen it as a carbon copy so much as just sort of a love letter and borrowing from why this franchise is even still being talked about 40 years later. He's JJ's. I mean, he's a great writer. He obviously knows his Star Wars, and honestly, I kind of like the idea that he started this and he's wrapping it up. So I feel like he's really going to tell his entire story.
I'm very excited, but yet extremely nervous to see The Last Jedi, just because of hearing what I've been hearing about the tone and the rhythm, that it's going to be unlike any other Star Wars film ever. So that makes me nervous, but it's that very excitable nervous that, we're going to get something very different kind of tone in the Star Wars universe, much like Rogue One was a different tone than the other films. And I loved Rogue One, but I think we're going to take The Last Jedi and just amp it up to 11. We're going to get something that when we walk out of this film, we're going to be walking like zombies, just trying to process what we just saw. So I kind of want that for Episode 9. I want something that's going to be totally drastically different. And I love me some JJ, but I kind of want a riskier director. And I don't want a safe director. Now, I can't say enough that I love me some JJ, but I just want a riskier director for Episode 9. That the one I believe this is going to be the end of the Skywalker saga. So this has got to be a huge event. Just like The Force Awakens was, this is going to be a huge event that people have just got to stop their lives. Don't go to work, don't go to school, because you've got to see this movie.
Well, I think that's a very intelligent opinion. Absolutely. I mean, JJ is interesting in many ways, and you mentioned risks. Fortunately, we can go through his catalog and see that he's got a wide range. Like, did he direct that Mission Impossible film that was so incredibly intense? Like,
yes, Mission Impossible 3.
Extremely, extremely intense, and so we know he can do that. I think safe is an interesting word too, because I'm sure. I mean, they basically said. I mean, I'm going to go ahead and read for us the statement that Kathleen Kennedy made about this. And it was very, very brief announcement on StarWars.com when it came out. And what she said was, with The Force Awakens, JJ delivered everything we could have possibly hoped for And I am so excited that he's coming back to close out this trilogy. Now, I like that because this trilogy. So, I mean, she's saying without saying there is going to be another trilogy. So,
of course, yeah.
I think, I'd say that's probably a no-brainer, but it's nice to kind of hear that. I mean, obviously going to be very, very careful with what they say. We ran a poll on our Coffee with Kenobi Twitter feed, and I was really surprised by the results. The three options were ecstatic, this is awesome, not first choice, but okay, and I'm not thrilled. 50% said ecstatic, 38% not my first choice, but okay, and then 12% I'm not thrilled. So I was definitely surprised. Usually these polls are pretty slanted one way, but this is pretty even across the board.
Yeah, I can see that because everyone's got their own opinion, and dare I say that Star Wars fans can be finicky? Is that safe to say?
I think that's fair. Yeah, we're definitely
that is safe
discernible
to say, yes.
And have very distinct tastes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just think everyone had their own view of what director. And of course, no matter what decision Lucasfilm and Disney make, it's going to be wrought with tons and tons of criticisms going every which way.
And I don't get
you really
that.
can't do anything safe.
It's true. And so tell me, gentlemen, what are your theories on why whenever there is big news, there's this knee-jerk reaction to be anxious or to panic? I don't feel that way. I don't think either of you feel that way. And a lot of people don't. But, when these things happen, people get nervous. Why the instant thinking that it's going to go poorly? Because it has not gone poorly since Disney took over.
Well, I think what we're seeing here is the transition from George Lucas' leadership to Kathleen Kennedy's leadership. When George Lucas was in charge, he was in charge of every aspect. He was the producer, he was the writer, he was the director, he was the lead editor, he approved every shot. He did everything except for the score. But now we're seeing how Kathleen Kennedy runs a film studio. And a lot of these director changes, a lot of these writer changes are actually pretty normal. But as people who are kind of insulated in the Star Wars bubble, this is not something that we've experienced before. So I think a lot of people are really surprised by all these changes because if you don't follow just film in general, you miss a lot of these rather common changes. I mean, it's not as common, say, as Lord and Miller getting kicked off when they're almost done with production. But director changes before production, changes in screenwriters, that's even more common. And so I think that our first reaction, since it's not just George is leading the ship, is to panic a little bit. And I think that panic is a little bit unfounded after Rogue One, because that was the first film that was really put through the ringer of the normal Hollywood process. So, and I would say that there's probably a reason we don't have a making of Star Wars The Force Awakens book. I'm guessing there were some sparks behind the scenes for The Force Awakens that we may never get to read about. But it's all in how people perceive things being wrong when actually it's pretty normal. It was unusual before.
I'll go in a whole different direction and say you take out social media from the equation and you won't get this. Everyone wanting to voice their opinion, because now that we have this thing called social media, everyone's got an opinion, which is great, but I think people just take it to that nth degree, and instead of processing the information, they'll go on their knee-jerk reaction and say things sometimes to get that click, to get those downloads, when it's not something they really mean. That it's unfortunate now that everyone has to weigh in, even if they believe one point or another, just to be in the conversation before they know what's going on. And we've seen this for decades with reporting. They get a nibble of a story and boom, they're off and running to this whole big blowout. So I think that has a lot to do with it. You released a new director, a new release date, and everyone wants to be the first one into the conversation and just be the ones to keep the conversation going.
Right. And well, I'm glad you brought up the release date, because that was the next thing I wanted to talk about. They've moved the release date from May 24th to December 20th. Personally, I'm thrilled with this. I mean, they're going to need a little more time anyway, since they've basically had to redo everything. Who knows what they did to this point. But now they've got a new writer, new director, as we just talked about. So you've got to move it so there's more time. It kind of reminds me of a little bit of the Force Awakens development, which is interesting, but not altogether surprising because, again, there have been a lot of things that have changed. I personally am glad this going from December to May and then so quickly these turnarounds, because we're going to have 6 months between Star Wars movies. I think that's way too quick. I like the anticipation and the waiting. So knowing that we're going to have to wait 2 more years to see what happens with Episode 9, I love that. This is why why the build-up for The Last Jedi is so exciting, because we've had some time to just think about it and to let our minds go other places and then come back to that. I think that's, for me, that just works better.
Yeah, I mean, if you
Christmas
think about
and
it,
Star Wars, what's better than that? I love going to see Star Wars during Christmas time.
from October of this year to May, we're going to get Rebels, we're going to get Forces of Destiny, we're going to get The Last Jedi, and we're going to get the Han Solo film. Let's spread that out a little bit more,
right,
and maybe push Han Solo back. And I'm so glad that they did push Episode 9 back, because they needed it. They really needed it. And I'm sure that was a big consideration in getting J.J. Abrams. And he said, yeah, I'll come on, sure. But you move that release date 7 months to December 20th, and I'm there.
It'll be interesting to see, too, what was said to convince him to come back. Because I thought it was pretty clear.
7 months.
Yeah, I guess that would be it. I mean, I know it took a lot of time from his family. The first one did, and I don't know. I'm sure that will come out of the Hollywood Reporter, Variety, or someone will report on it. So that's interesting. Now,
I think a nice thing for him will be the infrastructure is already in place in England now. So I don't think he'll have to go over quite as soon to get everything set up. Because, I mean, he was, the one that started everything.
Sure.
So that probably took quite a bit more time.
Well, he's already starting pre-production because they're going into production in January.
Right.
And for a film like this, you've got to start like today.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
All the sets, all the costumes.
But he might not need to go to England quite yet, because he can do writing in L.A. until they film.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think filming will be pushed back as well? Because I think, reading between the lines, I think what really threw a wrench in Episode 9, I think, was Carrie Fisher's death. They had to figure out how to break the story without her. And I think they may have had a script, at least a first draft, maybe in place, and they were happy with the direction they were going. And then I think that's where the split really happened. I think that's what really threw it off, because maybe Colin Trevorrow was trying to do something, and Kathleen Kennedy is saying, no, we can't do that because of this.
Sure.
So I don't know.
It could be. It's really, really, like you said, it's hard to say, because we're pretty much speculating, because we don't know for sure how that has impacted the story, and we won't know probably until Episode 9 is, a part of our collective memories of Star Wars anyway. So there's a lot to digest, but I'm glad. I like keeping the Star Wars conversation going. I love hearing both your perspectives. And speaking of that, up next, we're going to ask Richard about some updates on Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
This is Coffee with Kenobi.
Coffee with Kenobi is sponsored by the Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app from Topps. If you love Star Wars and love that excitement of chasing your favorite Star Wars collectibles, the Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app from Topps is for you. Download the free app from iTunes or Google Play and collect your favorite images from the classic 1977 Star Wars cards to the Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels, The Force Awakens, Rogue One, and The Last Jedi. Collect and trade with friends new and old through the Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app from Topps. These are the cards you're looking for. It's time to talk Patreon, and CWK's Patreon page is something that has gone so well for us. We've had so much fun with it. It's benefited our show in so many ways, and it's thank you so much to people like Jason Hall, Dennis Keithley, Angela Souse, Aaron Harris, Brian McKinney, Mediocre Jedi, Connie Shee, Terry Lee, BJ Smith, Nick Deco, Adam Leonard, Jim Capron, Mark Suter, Mike Audette, Eric Struthers, Jared Cantor, Swarth Sala, and Christo Hading. Our Patreon page is something that we use to helps us host our webpage and upkeep for all of the different equipment that is a part of podcasting, and with the things we like to cover on Star Wars events all around the globe, things like airlines, hotel, food, and transportation, the cost of that is helped because of your generosity through the Patreon page. And there are great incentives for you too. Starting at $5, you can get anything from recognition at the start of the show, like you just heard, a follow from us on Coffee with Kenobi's Twitter page, access to private conversations that we have on our Patreon message boards. You can get a coffee mug with the Coffee with Kenobi award-winning logo, t-shirts, and if you donate $50 or more, you could co-host a show with me for 1, 2, or 4 times in 1 month. So be sure to check out our show notes or our webpage for more details. All right, we are back, and as promised, we have a really nice opportunity here because I definitely know my Disney. I love Disney World so much because I used to work there. My wife and I honeymooned there. It's just got a lot of good memories for me. But Disneyland is pretty special too. And Richard is obviously, because of Skywalking Through Neverland and so many other things, I've had the good fortune to chat with Richard face-to-face a number of times. And your Disney passion is sincere and wonderful. And you are an avid Disneyland guy. So I'm sure that through your connections and just kind of visiting the parks, I'm sure you've got some interesting observations about Galaxy's Edge on that side.
Well, just living 20 minutes away from Disneyland, Sarah, my wife, and I we're able to go to Disney whenever we want. We want to go on a Wednesday morning, a Thursday evening, we're there. And our first stop is always at the top level of the Mickey and Friends parking structure. We have a clear view of the construction. The Skywalking Through Neverland YouTube channel, you can see all of our construction updates. So we'll take a video of 3 or 4 minutes. We'll point out everything that's new, what has been added. And every time we go, there's just a new structure being put up, new holes being dug, cement being poured. So they are really, really on the ball with this. And I can't tell you how excited I am for this after going to D23 Expo last July and seeing the big model of Galaxy's Edge, knowing where exactly everything is going to be. Here's where the Millennium Falcon is. On one side of the park, you're going to get the Resistance base. On the other side, you're going to get the First Order, you get the Marketplace in the middle. And it's just so fascinating to see little A-wings here and there, shuttles. I am so pumped for this. I can't even tell you. And knowing how big this is, wow. This is something that you can keep on going to day after day after day and always see something new. Now, I don't know if Dan or Mark, if you guys have seen Westworld, but we're just starting to watch this, and every episode we're getting more and more excited because, wow, this is what Star Wars Galaxy's Edge is going to be. Totally immersive. You're going to be able to immerse yourself in a storyline that you create, not Disney, but you create. You can be a bounty hunter. You can be a Jedi. You can be a part of the new Resistance. You can be the part of the First Order. Whatever you want to do is yours for the taking. And all you got to do is integrate yourself into a story. If you want something to go a certain way, well, you make sure the story goes that way. And through the wristbands or whatever technology they're going to use, they can capture everything and know every move you make to make your story that much more personable. So it's not going to be like the rest of the park where you're going to go up to something and be a passive observer. Now you're fully immersed. So at any time, if you're part of the Resistance, you could be surrounded by a First Order garrison and taken here or taken there. And then you add the Star Wars hotel. It's never ending. So Star Wars is not just films anymore. It's way beyond that. It's something that needs a new moniker, a new title for what Star Wars is, because it's not even it's above and beyond a franchise. It's just a way of life. Yeah, Star Wars is life.
And Disney is very much made sure that that's the case. I'm glad that you brought up the immersive, interactive concepts that they're going to employ here with Galaxy's Edge. What do you think about, now obviously we're huge Star Wars fans. We're talking about it on a podcast, and we spend a lot of our time just sort of breaking it down and discussing it with everybody. But there are going to be plenty of people who go to Galaxy's Edge who just want to be on vacation and just ride a ride and eat some popcorn and buy a T-shirt and don't want to kind of have that as part of their experience. What do you think? How do you think Disney's going to handle that?
Oh, I'm very sure they've covered this base too, because they don't want to exclude anyone. And that might be something, you might have a wristband that says just a casual observer, nothing more to see here, I'm just walking through, leave me alone. You could have one of those, which then, in case your behavior, your whatever you do on each ride or attraction won't be monitored. So I'm sure they've already covered that.
Kind of the move along band. Move along.
Yes. Yeah. Nothing more to see here.
Mark, what do you think? What are your thoughts on Galaxy's Edge and what the pros and cons of? I don't know that there are really cons to it, but what do you kind of think about this whole thing?
Well, the cons will be that you have to go back to your normal life because it seems like something that you'd want to do. I don't know. It's the concept of like live action role playing, but with Star Wars. And there's nothing about it that sounds terrible on any level to me. Now, my wife might not really appreciate it so much. So to have a truly, full experience, you almost have to go by yourself, or you need to have a family that's like totally committed. And imagine having like younger kids that they'll get tired and they might not want to keep doing it. So that's about the only like negative aspect I can think of it. But having been to Disney World 3 times, I know that whatever they do is going to be an amazing experience, and I'm looking forward to doing it if I get the chance.
Sure. Well,
at the very least, I'm going to spend a lot of time in Star Wars Land when we go next time.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's going to be well calculated, well thought out. Kids are going to love it. I'm wondering if it'll be something like what Universal has done with Harry Potter, because that's certainly immersive and it's certainly interactive, but you can easily just walk down the street and do your thing and not even be a part of it. But I think it sounds like this is taking it to a whole new level, and I believe, and Richard, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the people who helped create the Wizarding World of Harry Potter are the same people that are helping create Galaxy's Edge.
Exactly. And we've talked to a few of these unnamed people, and they just look at me like, oh my God, if you are impressed with Wizarding World, you ain't seen nothing yet. And of course they said, don't quote me on that. So right. I won't quote him on that.
Or her.
Pretend you didn't hear that.
And
yes, or her, yes.
This is totally random, but I actually met somebody who supplies some of the materials that make up these theme parks like just a few weeks ago. And they said that like Avatar World or whatever it's called is so amazing. Yeah, Pandora is so amazing. And they're putting at least that much effort into what they're doing for the Star Wars portion. And I've heard nothing but good things about Pandora, even from people who aren't necessarily Avatar fans that just decided to check it out. So I know Amy Ratcliffe from Lattes with Leia talked about that. And so I'm looking forward to this like I've not looked forward to much in my life other than Star Wars films.
The fact that they have gone and developed lightsaber technology, which they've already patented and are keeping so secret, that's like their biggest secret, how their lightsabers are going to work. How do you contain yourself? How do you contain yourself around that? And I think the only negative is going to be line management. They've got to do something to have the APs get in there earlier, the annual pass holders. They have to do something around Celebration Anaheim, if it's going to be in Anaheim in 2019, to have a release party for the attendees. They've got to do something to figure out how can we really disperse the crowds. We know that the diehard fans are going to be here, so let's have a separate occasion for them, kind of like they did for last tour to Endor in 2012, when they had a special night at Disney's Hollywood Studios when they were closing down the original Star Tours. Well, they had a special night surrounding that. So I think they need to do something along the lines of that, letting us diehards get in there first so we don't knock over all the innocent muggles if I can cross pollinate the franchises.
You can, and you've got to wonder too with the horrible force of nature, literally, that is Hurricane Irma, and how that has affected Walt Disney World. We're still very much learning about the damage and all the repairs and all the things they're going to have to do to get things back to working order. You almost wonder if Disneyland is going to be done even sooner than it already was, because it kind of looked like it was going a little bit faster than Disney World, and now this could really change things too.
Yeah, my brother-in-law just moved down to Tampa, and he went to Orlando to stay with my uncle-in-law. They did lose power, but I don't think it was too bad for them there. So hopefully it doesn't delay things too badly.
Richard, any theories on that?
Wow. You know what? I know there's always a wrench to be thrown into the equation, and I know that they need to release information as they see fit, knowing that we're just going to go ballistic over any little detail that we don't see in our future, something like a delay, something that could offset something. I think they need to really, really be careful with their information. And I do believe that they're going to release some somewhat in the same season. But, wow, just so the fans,
makes sense. And I think
the
that would be
diehard
fine.
fans can go to the opening of each one.
Right.
I know I'm going to be on board with that, to go to the Disneyland opening and then the Walt Disney World Hollywood Studios opening.
Yeah, I think that would be kind of neat anyway. And I'm sure things will come out as we move along. And while we are doing that and anticipating the excitement that is going to be Galaxy's Edge, we're going to take another break. And when we come back, Tom will do the news. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
This is Vanessa Marshall, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
The Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app features incredible images from many aspects of the saga, including the original trilogy, the prequels, the Clone Wars, Rebels, The Force Awakens, and Rogue One. It's the quality you have come to expect from Topps. It's also easy to get into and really fun, too. Your favorite Star Wars characters, scenes, and moments are in every pack. To get started, download the app for free from iTunes or Google Play, and then be sure to open the app each day for free credits to spend on card packs from the Cantina. Plus, if you can't get what you're looking for, there's a place to trade with your friends as you complete your Star Wars collection. And if you're an experienced collector, there are exclusive cards, special inserts, and autograph opportunities for you to enjoy. Don't worry about missing the cards and sets you want either, as you can sign up for notifications right on the app. The Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app from Topps can be downloaded for free from iTunes or Google Play. Be sure to download the app and start your collection today. The Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app from Topps is available now. And remember, these are the cards you're looking for.
We're back, and Tom is back to bring us the latest in Star Wars news. Tom, what do you have for us?
Well, in August, we reported that Disney would be parting ways with Netflix to create its own streaming service in 2019. And at that time, Disney had purchased a majority of BAMTech, the digital media company it plans to use as a streaming service for Disney and ESPN branded programming. Also at that time, it was left a little unclear what the exact fate of the Star Wars and Marvel franchises would be, but that was cleared up this week when Disney CEO Bob Iger announced that Star Wars and Marvel will move to the Disney direct-to-consumer streaming app. This announcement came at the Bank of America Merrill Lynch 2017 Media Communications and Entertainment Conference in Los Angeles, where Iger said, quote, "I have described a very rich treasure trove of content for this app. We're going to launch big, and we're going to launch hot." In addition to Marvel and Star Wars announcement, Iger noted that Disney also intends to add 4 to 5 original movies per year, as well as an equal number of original series and TV movies.
Oh, wow.
He also announced a bit more specific time frame for the launch, from just a general 2019 launch date to late 2019.
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind when I hear this is Bob Iger has been ready to retire from his position for a while now, but they keep coming out with these amazing things, and it's probably very, very hard to distance himself from so many exciting things. Not a surprise, I think we would all probably agree that they're going to, what was the word that come in hot with, they're going to have Marvel and Star Wars, and knowing that they're going to have original ideas in films and TV shows, that certainly will get the ball rolling on speculation, I would think.
Boy, 2019 is going to be huge.
Oh, my goodness.
I really hope that they follow through with this promise that they've been using. They've been giving us that there will be a Star Wars live-action TV series, which they started back in 1993.
Right.
So if it was ever going to happen, now's the time. They've already got the scripts. Let's get them moving.
Yeah, the only downside is paying more for all these different apps that are coming out for the different services. We are cord cutters, so we just have basically Amazon and Netflix, and we're going to be adding the CBS app to watch Star Trek. Well, at least I will be watching Star Trek. I can't convince my wife. But I just have to console myself that even if I have 5 or 6 different apps, it's still cheaper than cable plus DVR. That's very, very true. That is very true. I think I can't imagine it will be more expensive than a Netflix, but in whatever it is, I'm sure we'll pay it, because especially if we know there's going to be original programming. As long as there are no commercials.
And plus, if they're going to give us 4 new movies and new TV series, do we need the other apps? No. I'm sticking right with the Disney app. I don't need Hulu. I don't need Netflix. I'm just going to stay here.
I know we had talked about that in August when the news was first broke about this. And Dan, if you recall, we had been talking about how maybe movie houses are going to start pulling their movies from these general curators of multiple studios. And then perhaps maybe in the future it's all going to come back together, back to one. But when this came back out, that conversation came back to me, and I don't know if I am on that camp again. I'm starting to see maybe we're going to have to make some choices of, what studios do we really like, and what studios are putting new stuff out there and making things exclusive to their app. And this is big news. I agree. 2019 is going to be. I thought 2017 was going to be huge. 2019 is shaping up to be gigantic. Well, from streaming apps to the printed page. The cover and details to the book Star Wars Canto Bight were revealed today on StarWars.com. The book, which is part of the series Journey to the Last Jedi, will be a collection of novellas written by Saladin Ahmed, Ray Carson, Mira Grant, and John Jackson Miller, with the cover art by Matt Taylor. Well, this stunning cover has the title Star Wars Canto Bight in large red block letters diagonally going down left to right, with the author's names just under in white text. And the top half of the book's image is in white, black, and goldish tones, showing a host of exotic ships flying toward the viewer. And the lower half of the book has gold coins or credits showering over a picture of the aliens of Canto Bight. Along with the image on the cover, StarWars.com will give you a summary of each author's story written by the authors themselves. But I will say that my favorite novella title is Hear Nothing, See Nothing, Say Nothing, which in a way seems to be a bit more like military propaganda than Casino Mantra, or I don't know. Maybe it's more like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. What do you guys think?
The thing that's exciting to me is that it's a short story collection. John Jackson Miller writing Star Wars is always a great thing. He's one of the best out there. This very much reminds me of when The Force Awakens came out. We had Tales from a Galaxy Far, Far Away, the aliens. Landry Walker was on this, and I love those. I thought those were so fun, so interesting, so digestible, and you could just sit down random times and just get an entire Star Wars story in, and that's a little more tricky to do with the novel. So this is a cool concept. I'm not crazy about this whole casino thing for whatever reason. But I'm sure that I will be persuaded to once we see The Last Jedi.
You mean you're not crazy about the whole concept of the casino in Last Jedi?
I think so. Just the notion of we're in a casino. I mean, I know remember the diner stuff in Attack of the Clones, and like, that takes me a little bit too much out of the Star Wars universe. But I can definitely be persuaded.
Right before The Force Awakens, they had made a huge to-do over Maz Kanata's castle and all these new aliens we're going to be meeting. How many of those aliens did we actually meet, and how much time did we spend in Maz Kanata's castle?
Right.
So it might be something like that where the camera does a Scorsese where it zips around the tables, and we go in the front door, out the back door, and the chase continues, and that's all we ever see.
Yeah, I think
so. It might be something like that.
Right.
So when I first saw the whole Canto Bight thing in, was it Vanity Fair?
Yes.
My first reaction was, oh, here we go again. This is Maz Kanata's castle. We've been here. Don't get too used to all these aliens because we may just see them in the background and that's it. But I am excited about the Porgs.
I as a host of Tarkin's Top Shelf, I'm always excited for more books. My collection is my bookshelf. I don't really get into the figures so much. So this is right up my alley. I'm not sure how I feel about a casino in there, but we do know that, important things are won and lost in games of chance in Star Wars.
This is true.
These days, it seems we can never get Porgs off our mind, as was just mentioned. But it seems we are not alone. This week, one fan went to Twitter to express some depressive feelings that could be remedied by some Porg facts that maybe Rian Johnson could provide. Star Wars fan with the Twitter handle @halfaship tweeted, @Rian Johnson, I'm having a late night depressive episode and would like to know some more facts about Porgs. Thank you in advance if you read. Well, in this world of connectivity through social media that brings us closer to each other, Rian Johnson happened to offer a matter-of-fact reply. He said, or tweeted, they are seabirds, their coloring varies, males are slightly larger than females, and they can fly short distances, they're inquisitive. While most of that description, I guess we already kind of knew, it does sort of reaffirm, though, what we may have thought about their personalities, or shall I say, porganalities.
Oh, nice. You've been working on that one.
I see what you did there.
Yes, there you go.
Thank you.
Are we about to break down into some more Porg puns like we did a few shows ago?
Oh, man. I don't know if I can handle that again.
I think it's cool that Rian Johnson would reveal something. I mean, it's not like he's revealing anything huge, but the fact that he's interacting with fans and talking about this. I was thinking about Porgs the other day and about how is it fair to say they are going to be this generation's Ewoks?
Maybe
sure
not
still
on that
we
level.
don't know.
Yeah, we don't know how
about
much
the Ewoks until the film came out.
That's true, and I'm assuming the Ewoks will have had a much more direct impact on the action. But I mean, the cute factor is there. They seem charming. I think even the most staunch of, I don't want to like those, I think they're even kind of thawing a little bit because they're so darn charming.
Yeah, I was at Target today, and 4 aisles away, I heard this little girl scream, "Porgs! I love Porgs!" So that's telling right there that these things are going to be big. They're already huge, but they're going to be even bigger once we see the film in December.
And I think mainly they had a practical problem. There are a lot of puffins on Skellig Michael.
That's right.
And so what do? Do you digitally remove all of them, or do you come up with some solution so that you can have, something in place of that? And I think what they did is brilliant. You just have some hero Porgs, as in hero in the film prop term. And so they're in camera, they're very close, and then you've got puffins in the background. You might not even have to even manipulate those at all, depending on, the focus and the focal length of the lens. So I think it was a good solution. Plus, they are really darn cute. And, I think people are going to love them.
Oh, I do too. And you mentioned Paul Loughlin actually took some pictures from Skelling that it went on live on our Coffee with Kenobi website recently. And he has included a bunch of pictures of puffins, and you can't look at them now and not see Porgs. I think these things are going to be very, very popular at zoos now because of the legacy that they have impacted on the Porgs. Well, Tom, thank you as always for swinging by and having a quick cup of coffee with us.
Oh, you are most welcome, and it's great to visit with everybody tonight.
We'll go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we're going to discuss Luke Skywalker and his behavior in Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
This is Coffee with Kenobi.
Coffee with Kenobi is sponsored by the Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app from Topps. If you love Star Wars and love the excitement of chasing your favorite Star Wars collectibles, the Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app from Topps is for you. Download the free app from iTunes or Google Play and collect your favorite images from the classic 1977 Star Wars cards to the Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels, The Force Awakens, Rogue One, and now The Last Jedi. Collect and trade with friends new and old through the Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app from Topps. These are the cards you're looking for. It's coffee chat time here at Coffee with Kenobi, and we're bringing up a topic that seems a bit random, and I think that's fair to assume that initially. But when we were at Force Friday, we were waiting in line at Toys R Us. We're doing some Facebook Live stuff, Tom and Corey and myself, and the whole idea of a dark Luke came up in reference to the action figures, and that brought up something that I saw Matt bring up, Matt Martin, of course, from the Star Wars Story Group, about we've had a dark Luke before, and he showed an image of Luke from Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi. And so we started talking about Luke and his behavior when he gets into the palace. And I'm talking specifically about strangling Gamorrean guards, very much asserting himself. Perhaps, I mean, he definitely, I wouldn't say that he's aggressive, but he has no problem. Aggressive negotiations, I think, as his father would have said. But when we reflect on this, gentlemen, what are kind of your thoughts on Luke? Without, of course, speculating on The Last Jedi, because we don't do that here.
When I first saw that shot in the Revenge of the Jedi trailer in 1982, where he's strangling the Gamorrean guards, I was taken aback. What is Luke doing? That's not what a Jedi does. And then as I'm watching the film as a teenager back in 1983, I could relate with him because I was 14 at the time. So I thought, it seems like he's going through his, if you could equate it with our years, more like the teenage years, the late teenage years, when you think you know all the answers, but yet the smallest thing could set you off. And I think that's kind of where Luke was with his Jedi Knight status. At that point, he enters Jabba's palace. He walks in. I'm sure he used the Force to manipulate himself inside. He's up against two Gamorrean guards. You know what? I can quickly dispense with them with a wave of the hand. If I got to tap into that dark side, so be it. I've got a mission, and I've got to save my friends. And as we go along, he does display more and more dark tendencies. So I would relate him to that teenager who he wants something, doesn't really know exactly how to convey it. So he uses maybe violence, uses dark energy, and that's how he's going to communicate. And that's just the way Luke did it when he grabbed the gun from the guard, and he didn't do things that he would have done maybe 6 months later.
Yeah, I think
how do you feel about that?
He's definitely on a razor's edge throughout the whole film. And I think if you really look at the way everything is structured around the Jabba's palace sequence, Luke has incredible foresight, almost on the level of Emperor Palpatine, for how things are going to fall into place. And so you kind of wonder if part of the dark side is maybe forcing things to happen, no pun intended. And the way that he was, he thought, okay, I'm going to hide this lightsaber in R2-D2. And, how many days go by until he comes there even? And R2-D2 just happens to be on the sail barge serving drinks, and it just all works out. And so I think throughout the whole film, you're just seeing his flirtation with the dark side. And when he finally, I think, taps into that, it's right at the end of the fight with Vader. And, he's just smashing. And, I think that was a moment that he finally had to make a choice. Was he going to choose the dark path or the light path? So everything before that, he was just sort of experimenting with it. I mean, with the Gamorrean guards, was he choking them or was he mind tricking them to think they were choking? So, I mean, you could justify it. But I think that throughout the film, you're just kind of seeing a little bit of darkness in there, but he's not really committing to it. But the dark side does dominate your destiny, so we don't really know exactly what happened to the Jedi he was training between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. But, maybe that played into it. Who knows?
This was only months after Vader told him that he was his father, so I'm sure he had a lot of time to think, and maybe he did tap into that dark side just to see if the grass was greener on the other side.
See, the challenge with this conversation is that it's all anachronistic, because obviously when Lucas made this and Richard Marquand made this, the other things the Jedi can do, like the way he could have disarmed the Gamorrean guards, if this were set there in the prequel era, it would be much different. It would have been a force push or a mind trick or who knows what. I mean, if the mind tricks work on those with a weak mind, and Gamorrean guards don't appear to be doing calculus at any point in the films. So,
that scene was cut out. If you look at the Blu-ray, there is a scene where they're all taking some math exams.
Oh, that's true. I can't wait till the figures for that. So you've got that challenge there. So story-wise, then we're brought to this interesting dynamic. I have never, ever bought into the fact that Luke flirts with the dark side. Never. I do believe, of course, that when he's battling Vader in front of the Emperor, when he thinks his friends are going to die, I think he gets really, really angry, and I suppose there's some dark side stuff that happens in there. But that entire film, Luke's as cool as the other side of the pillow. I mean, he's very, very calm with the Ewoks on Jabba's palace. Even when there's peril, he still is able to just sort of handle it in a much different way than he would have in The Empire Strikes Back. So this might actually be a discussion point that will be more challenging to kind of come to some sort of peace with until we do see what happens in The Last Jedi. It's hard to say.
Yeah, and I would say that sometimes anger is righteous. Sometimes anger is justified. When you see a horrible injustice in the world, it's your duty, really, as a compassionate person to say, hey, this is wrong. And sometimes, that makes you angry. Now, we don't go out with, lightsabers and hack people's hands off, but I think there is a place for that. And I think in protection of his family, you could make the argument that it wasn't tapping into the dark side to be angry. To feel is not evil.
Right. That's right. In fact, it's human.
George Lucas has said that Luke did go to that dark side very, very quickly in Return of the Jedi when Vader says, "Sister."
Oh, yeah.
And Luke jumps up, and Lucas had said that Luke had gone to the dark side for that moment, with the way he strikes out at Darth Vader and just wails and wails and wails. And luckily, he was able to pull himself back when he threw the lightsaber at the Emperor and said, "Nope, I'm going to handle this like a Jedi. I'm not going to use a lightsaber." That was the moment where he came back to the light side, and I think he saw enough of the dark side right then and there that he said, "You know what? Never again. I know how tempting it can be. I know how quickly you can get things done, but that's not the Jedi way, and that's not the way I'm going to go." Totally
agree with everything you said there. That's and it's that quick thing, and it's about the only taste he has because he's able to turn away from it. And that scene when he throws away the lightsaber is one of the most beautiful in the entire saga of Star Wars, because he's showing true pacifism, and he corrects the error that the Jedi make during the prequel era of ignoring and shunning violence to try to find a different way. And he's doing it in front of the most evil character that this mythology can offer us. So I still don't see it as he struggles at the beginning. It's with the dark side of the Force. As far as him strangling the Gamorrean guards, I mean, it worked. He didn't kill him.
Yeah.
He that was his way of pushing them away. So I don't know.
I think that's just what he knew. Luke didn't get that much training, so that's all he knew how to do. And just like, some teens who they haven't had the right schooling or the right patient mentor, they just resort to violence. And I think that's what Luke did because of his lack of training.
Yeah,
and let's not forget his plan A with Jabba was to murder him with a blaster. So it didn't work out, but he tried to pull one.
Good call. Well, it'd be interesting to see what everyone else feels about this. Feel free to weigh in on the show notes or online, and we'll all be happy to interact with you and kind of see what you think. So we're going to take our last break and return with some reviews from iTunes. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are the podcast you're looking for. This is... yes.
Before we get to some iTunes reviews, I want to thank our CWK sponsor, the Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app from Topps. Please support them the way they support our podcast. And remember to listen to new and archived shows of Coffee with Kenobi wherever you listen to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts and iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Player FM, our Coffee with Kenobi website, www.coffeewithkenobi.com, or wherever you enjoy listening to your favorite shows. And if you listen to the show through iTunes, please leave us a review. We are also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Tumblr, and we'd love for you to check us out there. Be sure to listen to our CWK family of shows too, including Legends Library, Rebels Reactions, Comics with Kenobi, and Lattes with Leia. We have an iTunes review from podcaster Mike. This is long overdue. Mike from the Cantina Cast here, and I'm going to tell a little story about the Cantina Cast and Coffee with Kenobi. Back in 2013, Joe and I were spinning our wheels trying to figure out what the Cantina Cast was going to be all about. We broke it down a few characters and analyzed some scenes and quotes as well, but it wasn't until CWK came on the Star Wars podcasting scene that Joe and I realized we had to step up our game. Dan and Corey pushed us to be better podcasters and helped us focus on what we wanted to do. But what really is amazing is the friendship between the two podcasts. We compete to make our show better and Star Wars podcasting as a whole, but we're friends first and foremost. There isn't a classier Star Wars podcast out there. CWK is one of the elite Star Wars podcasts. It's great to see another Star Wars podcast looking at the Holy Saga in a whole new way. Thank you, Dan and Corey, for helping us to be better at what we love to do. And Mike, thank you so much for that incredibly generous and flattering iTunes review. I appreciate it so much. If you haven't heard the Cantina Cast yet, surely you have, but if you haven't, you definitely need to go subscribe to them right now. Mike and Joe do a wonderful job. And again, thank you so much, Mike. That was really, really kind of you. A big thank you to Richard Woloski and Mark Sutter for having some coffee with all of us. Where can listeners get in touch with each of you if they want to ask you a question or just say hello? And Richard, let's start with you.
I am at skywalkingthroughneverland.com. That's where you can hear our show. Or you can go to iTunes or Stitcher. You can tweet at us at SkywalkingPod. We have a great Facebook group on Facebook where we have a lot of great, very safe discussions. If anyone gets out of hand, if anyone delves in negativity, boom, you're out of there. You're gone. We don't want that. We don't want drama. We have a great group who are very, very supporting of each other. And we've seen that a lot of our Skywalkers have formed their own meetups across the country, wherever they can, because they feel like they're such good friends with each other that, hey, if you're going to be in my neck of the woods, let's come on over here and let's meet up. And there are meetups everywhere, Skywalking to Neverland meetups. And so I love this group so much. And if anyone wants to become a part, which I fully encourage, just go to our page. There's 2 easy answers. And once you've answered those questions, in you go, and let's have some fun.
I love that so much. And I love the positivity that you've brought to fandom, Richard. You're a treasure.
Well, thank you. And we're going to stand by that. And all of our shows are very fun-filled and very, very family-friendly because Star Wars is for the family. And let's keep it that way.
I agree. And Mark, you've got some amazing things. And talk about adding to Star Wars conversation. You always have some insightful things to say. Where can people hear more of your insights?
Well, first and foremost, my personal Twitter handle is at Mark E. Sutter. and also I'm on Instagram through the same name. You can hear me on Idiots Array with Ryder and Alan. That's at Idiots Array Pod, and we just talk about whatever's current, comics, books, movies, news, or any topic that our listeners may suggest. Also, you can hear me on Tarkin's Top Shelf, where Becca Benjamin and I analyze and dissect all the new Star Wars novels and books as they come out. And that is at Tarkin's Top Shelf. And yeah, you can hear my thoughts on both of those shows. And anytime you have a thought or a word on Twitter, I'm glad to talk about it.
Well, we will have links to all these things in the show notes for sure. So thank you to each and every one of you for listening to and supporting Coffee with Kenobi and for contributing to Star Wars Conversation. We will be back next week with 2 new co-hosts and more Star Wars talk. This is the podcast you're looking for.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here. Move along. Move along.